try that again. Hello everyone, and welcome back for another stream. Sorry, I was adjusting where my microphone was and I managed to pull the cable out of it, which meant that Streamlabs then didn't understand, or OBS then didn't understand that I had a microphone. So hello. Hello, welcome back. It's Friday, it's the 26th of February, and it is about 1:15. I'm late because I had to finish watching Critical Role because I had 10 minutes left and I couldn't stop. I'm not sorry. The workshop that I was meant to be going to this morning ended up not happening because I couldn't access it, which is annoying again, but not like the end of the world. So I'm going to just call that one a write-off, and I was happy that I was up and able to watch Critical Role before streaming. Which is what I normally do on a Friday. If on a Friday you hear me say, no, I'm taking it easy this morning and I'll see you this afternoon, it's because I'm watching Critical Role. Yeah, hello. I'm going to talk about what happened yesterday, and we're going to talk about what that means, and we're going to make some new plans together. The idea had been to do like the write-up or research for genre fiction today. I had some reading I was going to do, but after talking to my supervisors, and we're in the process of, just as a reminder, I had my induction review yesterday, which is the first time I meet with my whole supervisory team, which for me is 2 people. I have a primary and a secondary supervisor. My primary supervisor is the one who mainly works with me. My secondary supervisor is there for additional insight and like as backup, basically, in case anything were to happen to my primary supervisor. And that includes like them leaving the university, not only terrible things happening. So I had this meeting, and one of the things we talked about was I was talking about why I'm using the forms that I am and how they relate to each other. And in the process of that, I realised something I'd already started to kind of feel, which is that genre fiction just doesn't fit. It does the things... I theorise that it functions in relation to this in a similar way to fan fiction, but just not as well effectively. So I would be both doubling up and not adding anything. Sorry, I'm very warm all of a sudden. It's probably the vast number of lights I have on me right now. But yeah, so I've decided that I'm just not gonna include genre fiction at all, which means that all the stuff that we plan to do today, we're not doing. We're doing something else instead, because now I'll actually tell you how my induction review went. So first of all, a giant fuck you to my anxiety, because I did not get kicked out of my PhD. I did not get asked to go part-time. I did not get told that I disappointed anyone. I got told that my work was groundbreaking and they were really excited and looking forward to working with me. Fuck you, anxiety. So we'll get that one out of the way first. So it went really really well. I was very overwhelmed during it. I rambled a lot. Because I got excited and kept going off on tangents. So I think they have a lot of information about what I'm doing, but not necessarily. I don't know if I always delivered it in a coherent order. It's really hard for me to tell. I'm not good at reading people, and that's in large part because I can't look at people's faces when I'm talking to them. So I don't have any idea what expressions people are pulling. I'm a little more able to do that when it's a screen, because it's not as intense as looking at a person for me, but I still don't have the skills to be able to tell how people are reacting to me. My brain just doesn't work that way, other than presuming that they hate me and want me to leave. So I kept just like talking excitedly about what I was doing and why, and explaining things, and so basically there's a bunch of questions we had to answer together as part of the review, and what I'll do is I've got my supervisors now send me a copy of the write-up for it, so I can tell you all the questions we had to answer. Oh, sorry about that, I haven't muted. That was my computer, not yours. I haven't muted alerts, but I have now. So I'll come back to the first question actually, because that's kind of the last one we answered. So it's things like, have key publications and sources relevant to the research topic been identified, which was yes, I've done lots of that. What my skills training plan is, so you've heard me talk about the researcher development program. I've already completed the researcher's developer assessment, which I need to make sure is sent to my supervisor now. And I've been taking workshops at the graduate school, so I'm on top of all of that. There's any initial concerns that I have, which we covered under a later question, because obviously I have additional concerns, but they're mostly related to my disability. So we put that under any additional support the student might require. There was record of any work the student is undertaking in addition to the research degree. So we put nothing for that because I left my job in December. And this is what I'm doing here. We didn't put that down because this is kind of part of my PhD job. Both my supervisors now know that I'm doing this. I had sort of told them, I think my secondary supervisor knew because I did it during my dissertation as well, but they're aware, and think it's a really good idea and really good practice, and they're really pleased that you're all here helping me, so I'll pass on their thank you as well. So there's record of key resources and facilities to be used in conduct of the research project. I'm also reading what my supervisor wrote as well now. I skimmed it earlier when she sent it, but so it's basically saying a lot of my resources are digital. I'm delaying the things where I need actual collections. I know where those collections are. I have access to those collections, because some people, when they're doing, especially if you're looking at like medieval manuscripts, for example, you have to get like really specific permission to access archives, and that would be a thing you'd know early on, whereas I already have access to all of the archives I need, because one of the archives is in, as far as we're aware. There might be others that come up later on for specific things, but currently the main stuff I need access to, I've got access to. And then, yeah, she's just put that I go to my reading group and other conferences and seminars and all sorts of things. And then there's agreement on the ways in which the supervisor-student relationship will work, and preferred means of contact. So we've put that I'm having monthly online supervisions. One of the things we mentioned earlier is that my supervisions will continue to be offline if I want. That's something my supervisor and I already agreed, that even once coming back to campus is an option, I'll be able to say, no, can we do this one remotely today, at any time. And then at the reviews, we'll meet as a whole team, so my second supervisor will be there as well, and also I've then got my second supervisor that I can contact at any time. And basically this form, so there's one more question that is bigger than what we're going to be talking about mainly today, so I'll come back to that. This form goes off to the faculty director of graduate studies, or just the director. It goes to the director of graduate studies, and then it has to be signed off by them, but it's not a super formal thing. It's as much them saying, yeah, my supervisor's done the work. I also can now write up, so once a month I also have to record what work I've done with myself and with my supervisor as a supervision record. I haven't done that at all yet, partly because I started on the 26th of January or something, so I technically have to record January, but it's like 4 days. So I'm not done it at all yet. So I'm kind of 2 months behind, but I'm also not at the same time. So I'm going to do both of those next week probably. But yeah, the main thing, and the thing we spent a lot of time talking about, because obviously I went in and said, look, I'm almost done with this write-up, it's going to be done next week and I'll send it to you then and we can then talk about it then, but highlighted that the problem was, because you'll all know I'd put next week that my target was to work out what my thesis structure was. And as we were talking, I found myself saying, I still don't know. And I don't know. I've had ideas. We've talked about ideas I've had, but some of them contradict each other and I don't know what's better. And we basically came to the conclusion that I need more information, more answers to the questions I've got before we can start like really understanding how that turns into a narrative. I also write in a very fragmented way anyway. Anyone who was like here for the dissertation months will know that I tend to write bits of things and then I pull them together, and that's how I prefer writing. It's how I write everything basically, even like fiction. I'll write fragments of scenes and then I'll join them all up. And so the idea is to work with that, because this question is work plans and targets to meet ahead of the next review, which is my probation review, which is 10 months in, so will be like end of October, beginning of November. That seems both far away and not very far away all at once. But so in this question, we've written up that I've been doing this initial write-up, and that I found varying degrees of scholarship existing on my different forms. We talked about like what the point of me doing this research is and why I'm doing that, and I was able to give a good answer to that, which was pleasing, and thanks to the like practice of explaining it here. So yeah, we talked about a bunch of that, but the conclusion we came to was I can't work that out yet. But I need 10,000 words by that review. So the plan, oh my god, I can't, it's really weird to be talking about this. I've been really overwhelmed because this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 10 months. My PhD I'm going to be doing for the next 3 years, and it's almost like that's just hitting me now. So, I'm going to build on what I've been working on, because we know that like the stuff I've been writing up, bits of that may end up in the final thesis because they're useful. I will continue to build on what I've been working on, and I will complete a piece or linked pieces, so it can be fragments, it might be pulled together, it depends what happens. In the range of 10,000 words that will focus on 1 or 2 of these forms. I think I'm going to do 2, because I think where I've got crossover between them, I think it's beneficial to work on sort of things back to back. Also, I've only got 3 years and I've got 8 different forms, so if I do 1 a year, this is going to take a while. But whilst I'm writing that up, so that will be a mixture of like a literature review, of reading through things and writing up what the general state of scholarship is in those fields in relation to my questions, but it will also be starting to work out what my answers to those questions are, to be able to articulate them more clearly, to say, hey, I found this, this and this, and these things back up this idea I had. So that's what I will be doing for the rest of this year. That's what we will be doing for the rest of this year. I'm just gonna be doing this a lot today, it's okay. I'm gonna move us over to Notion now, because fuck this thesis plan. I'm not going to delete this entirely, because I am still going to use next week. But I'm going to use next week for oh no, that's not next week, that's the week after. I am just going to delete this. Did you delete? Yeah, okay. So if we go into here, so this is my overview statement. I'm just gonna tick genre fiction off because it's effectively done by the fact that I've decided not to include it. So I just have artists books, and then I have send right up to supervisor, and then I have meeting with supervisor about that whenever that ends up being. It may end up being the week after, depending on when she's free, but that's in there. And then the next thing I will do is dive face first into one of my forms. The question is, which ones do I want to do? So I like that I've just brought you over to Notion, and now I'm like, actually, let's go to Scrivener. I'll leave you on Notion. I'm just going to go to Scrivener because. So, I'm trying to pick between three of them, basically. I don't think role-playing games is a good start, because I think role-playing games is higher up on the weird level, on the abstract level from a traditional narrative. And I think it will benefit me to go to that later. We know that I can't do artist books, because I can't literally go into an archive right now, so that one has to be later as well. I think, because graphic novels is then closer to a traditional narrative, I either want to start with that one or leave it until later, which then leaves interactive and visual novels, fan fiction, and video games. So, oh god, I have to make serious decisions now. Okay. Breathe. It's almost like I'm in charge of, like, what is technically going to be the biggest thing I've ever worked on in my life. I think it is a good idea to start with something that I will find really fun, because that will help me in getting used to it, because I'm still getting used to doing this full time. I'm gonna find all of them fun. That doesn't really help. My instinct, the first thought I had when we were talking about this was to do video games and interactive and visual novels this year. And the reason for that is that there's crossover between them, right? Because visual novels are games. And sorry about the yees, by the way. Yeah, visual novels are games. There is crossover. There are similarities in, like, the way engines are used to build things. There is some crossover in terms of using a computer or gaming device in order to interact with them, of using peripherals or like, be it keyboard and mouse or controller, in order to interact with the narrative, things being voice acted, stuff like that. So they go together quite nicely. And fan fiction, which is the other one that I was tempted to do, is a bit weirder. It's a bit more abstract, because it's as much about how like it's engaged with as a community, not just as individuals. So I think those two go well together. So I'm not necessarily going to work in this way through the whole PhD. And also things could change, right? I could get a month into this and go, actually, I need to change to a different one now, and then go through and do a month on each of them. We don't know. But this is the aim for this year. And I just have to pick something so I can start. I just have to pick something. Video games has... let's say we're picking between video games and interactive and visual novels, because I think I need to narrow it down to that. And that I'll do both of them this year, and it's just like deciding what order I do them in. The contrast between them is that video games have a lot of literature written about them, like a lot of theory about video games, a lot of discussion. There are scientific studies into the effect of playing video games on people, some of which are bullshit. There's a lot of scholarship, right? There's basically nothing by comparison about a lot of visual novels. There's some about interactive fiction. There is a module at my university, it turns out, about interactive fiction. But that focuses on some other things. Doesn't seem to include visual novels, but it includes things like Black Mirror. So that could be interesting to, I don't know if I can audit that. Auditing is when you sit in on a module as a PhD student, don't do any of the assessments, but you turn up to all the classes, so that would be useful. So I think I have to do video games first, because I think in order to better understand visual novels especially, I need to have read the video game literature first, because I think I'm gonna do more work out of projecting video game theory onto visual novels than there is going to be theory about visual novels, is my instinct. Unless I become fluent in Japanese magically. That's not gonna happen. Or find Japanese scholarship in translation, because I'm convinced there's more. But I haven't been able to search for it, because I have no idea how one searches for things in translation. So I think I think I'm gonna start with video games. I'm gonna start with video games. We get to play games on stream, guys. Right. Okay, yes. Decision made. Made a decision. Now we decide what the fuck that means. Because... Okay. God. You know how when you start something new and it's simultaneously really exciting and really overwhelming and terrifying all at the same time? I am very anxious. My chest is very tight. So I've had another thought. So I am permitted / required / encouraged. I apologise if you can hear the noise of whatever motorbike that was. Yeah, I can take holiday. And I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to take some holiday between handing this write-up into my supervisor and then starting video games. Maybe that's a good point, because then I don't interrupt the flow of anything. And potentially I could do that. Sorry, I'm just going to look at my calendar now. Could do that over a week in March. Can't go anywhere. Why do so many video gamers play lo-fi? It's mostly DMCA, to be honest, because there's a lot more DMCA free lo-fi available than there is other things. At least that's like easily available. A lot of us will play this same lo-fi because this is Stream Beats, so that's a whole bunch of stuff that's specifically made for streaming. And lo-fi is just nice. I quite like it. So also your username is amazing, Destroyer of Alderaan. Oh, I've opened the wrong thing myself. Right, back on Notion. And thinking about how do I want to tackle this? What am I... So if we do I want to put an overall task in, like almost like a master task, effectively. Maybe I don't know enough. I don't know enough about it. So yeah, I think I want, because I almost want a master task of video games deep dive that I then schedule from, what are we talking? So I've got March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 8 months. So let's say that we look at 3 months for this initially. This is such a long time. I have such a long time. This is the comparison of me panicking about getting this one write-up done in a month versus me going, wow, I get to research video games for 3 months and I could probably do 4 months. But I think if we do 3 to start with and then 3 on interactive and visual novels, I've then got like a spare 2, which will be eaten up by holiday, by like natural delays, and it gives me some room then also like to do reflecting on what it, obviously I'll be doing the reflecting on answering my questions as we go along. But yeah, I think we put this and I'm gonna put it from the 8th of March because that's where that gives a week in between thesis overview and that, which I can either use as holiday or as the time in which I'm going to see my I could just have a quieter week rather than a full holiday week, we'll see. And I'm going to include an end date of 1, 2, 3. So I guess that would be the 11th of June. Wow. Oh. Sorry, I just that's really weird. The 11th of June is when my granddad's funeral was, because he died on the 27th of May. Well, that's kind of fitting, isn't it? Oh, that's weird. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make it the day before. I don't want to be doing that on that day. Oh, okay. I'm gonna give this a description of okay, let's think about this. My aims here are a literature review. So a literature review of like a proper literature review about mental health and video games. Then sourcing and experiencing primary sources, aka playing games. I get to play games for my PhD. Do you think I get to ask them to fund my video games? No, but I'm definitely, any video games that I buy, I'm definitely putting on my tax expenses, because I'll be playing them on here, so I can do that. I've ordered new monitors, by the way. I'm really excited. I'm going to actually have monitors that aren't standing on a stack of books on my desk, arriving on Monday. So that's going to be fun. So literature review, sourcing and experiencing primary sources, and researching the answers to my questions. Cool. I'm just going to leave that at that. Doesn't need to be more than that, because that's the big overarching one. And its tag is research. Then, in order to do that, something else that I need to do, and I can in fact put this in that in-between week. I think that this is a good thing to put in that in-between week. So between seeing my supervisor, whenever that ends up being, and then before I do the deep dive, we need to know... There we go. What are my questions? What are my research questions? I know them all. It's not that I don't know what my questions are, obviously. I would not have started a PhD if I didn't know what I was researching. Hold on, I haven't put a week in between. So we can do this next week. We can do this next week, that's fine. Somewhere in there. And I will probably like narrow this down to specific days when I plan my week, which I'll do on Sunday. But until then, it's just a good way to do it. So what are my research questions? I know a lot of them. I've never written all of them down in their entirety. It might be a good thing to include in my write-up, maybe, if depending on when I do it in relation to when I send stuff in and how I'm feeling. But I will write a couple down here just because they're fresh in my mind from having had that supervision. So I'm gonna write I'm gonna write my questions down. Okay. I want to know, how do these narrative forms... Well, two things. I first of all want to prove that these narrative forms are better at communicating the embodied experience of mental illness. So the first question is, are these games... No. Forms better at communicating? And I've realised I'm on the clicky keyboard, sorry about that. I'm also going to change this to a bulleted list. Turn this into a bulleted list. Cool, thank you. So are they better at communicating the embodied experience of mental illness? How do they achieve this superior communication? What impact can that have on both the mentally ill and those who are not? Do I like Carl Pilkington? I don't know who that is, Destroyer. Yeah, so what impact can that have on those both with and without mental illness? And I've got more. Well, I think a lot of my... I've got questions that are then sub-questions, because then in like how do they achieve this superior communication, I'm gonna end up thinking about, is this because it's interactive? Like all those themes that we've that we've been drawing out, a lot of them are related to how do they achieve this. Things like where does an illness narrative, you like my accent, what am I made of? Well, I think I'm 70% water. My largest organ is my skin. So I'm mostly skin, to be honest with you. I've got quite a lot of hair as well, so probably a significant proportion of me is hair. Not so much of me is my accent, really. I don't know how you'd put that as a percentage of yourself. Yeah, so a lot of the things, those themes, including, yeah, that's what I was saying. When an illness narrative becomes not a narrative about a person who happens to be ill, and where you draw that line and whether it matters or not. That's also in that how do I achieve it? And also I think in are they better at it? Because it's sort of related to that, right? In order to, one of the things I was talking about yesterday in the review is the fact that in order to show the embodied experience of something, you have to show the whole context of the life in some way. Even if you're showing a fragment, in order for that to communicate the embodied experience, that person doesn't stop being the other things they are whilst they're experiencing a panic attack, for example. Iron Man is still Iron Man in the moments that he's having a panic attack. To use an example that a lot of people know. So I think that sort of comes under there as well. I'm gonna go back and take a peek at, where is it? I opened it here. Just seeing whether we wrote any others in the write-up from yesterday. Oh yeah, so other things about the forms being more accessible is also in there as well. I wonder whether I might actually put these as sub points in there, or I might come back to it. In Black Mirror, there's the doctor who wears a helmet that means he can feel his patient's pain. Okay, so I'm not familiar with Black Mirror, and I don't know, because I'm looking at interactive fiction, but I've been thinking primarily of doing that as text-based interactive fiction, but I don't know whether, you know, I might find that I get to that point and I want to expand it to include things like Black Mirror. But as I say, I'm not familiar with it at all. And no, I know of it. I've just not seen it. And I'm not aware of any representations of people with mental illness in that as being the primary focus of the series, so it probably wouldn't be relevant to my research. I may be wrong there, because as I say, I only know of it, I've not seen it. So yeah, I'm gonna put all of those themes in there as right. So how do they achieve this? So interactivity, immersion. I've just remembered some of the other questions, some of the really big questions we talked about. I'll come back to that sublist. Why have these forms in particular become, I'm going to say exploded in the last 20 years? The reasons, because we were talking about one of the other things that connects all of these together, they're all recent, relatively recent big things. All of them are something that's developed, exploded. Yeah, horror games do tend to deal with mental illness, but they tend to do it very badly. A lot of them. So I will be looking at some that do it badly deliberately. I will deliberately be looking at them, not that they deliberately do it badly, in order to contrast with ones that do it well. Which is unfortunate because I fucking hate horror. I have a chronic illness that makes me terrified all the time anyway. I don't want to then do it for fun, but I'll have to manage it. So yes, all of these forms are things that have gotten bigger or more well known or more people involved in them or something about it changing. Like in the case of graphic novels, it's people coming to understand that they're not just like funny Snoopy comics for children, that they're actually like a serious form of media that has the capacity to transmit a lot of really cutting edge art and thought. And my theory is that all of these things have exploded in the last 20 years because of technology developments, because of the internet, because of so for example in gaming, the creation of VR and the improvement of computer systems and the wider availability of things means that video games can be more immersive, they can be more interactive, they can, you know, that it's radically changing how people engage with those media, which means that there's more capacity to communicate that embodied experience more clearly and more fully. So as a sub-question, I'll put, how has technological development informed this? And I don't know whether that's I'm assuming that's a question people have asked and looked for answers for, because there's a lot of like research into the internet and the effect of the internet, but and the effect of the internet on mental health, but I think a lot of that tends to focus on things like social media and stuff, so I'll be interested to see if there's anything out there. But yeah, so then I'll put back at this sub list, we have interactivity, immersion, how I'll put ability to display context of a wider life. Multi-sensory was one of the others, and then accessibility. And that's not in terms of like disability accessibility, or not just that, but also like how close people are to how easy it is to publish things of different types. So how it's much easier to publish a webcomic now, or to publish a video game even. In visual novels there are engines like RenP and Unity that mean that you don't need to know coding skills in order to publish a game. I worked for an online game for 6 years? 6 years. It was 6 years. And I didn't have much in the way of coding skills when I went in there. I developed some by the time I left, but they weren't directly necessary to me telling stories through that. So yeah, I think that's it. I'll have that as a basic thing. I think what I'd like to be able to do in that week is put together almost like a form that I can consider as I'm going through and reading things, because that's one of the things that came up in my reading techniques. Oh, I'm really sorry, Buttermode. I'm going to have to time you out for a bit, but I'm going to explain why. And oh, is that gonna? For goodness sake! 1 second. Right, I'll explain why. So the reason is you've used a word that is ableist, but you may not instinctively realise that it does. So you use the word done, which is an ableist term, but it's also very common in talking about things. So ableist means that it discriminates against people with disabilities. And there are lots of words that we use casually that fall into that category. So we all do it all the time. I do it still as well. I'm trying to get it out of my system. But I do ask, there's in the rules, in the panels down below, you'll see, I do ask that people don't use language like that here. And that is also partly because I'm trying to get better at it myself. So that's why I've had to clear your message and time you out. I want to make sure that people understand why I'm doing that when I do that. There is a really good, I don't know if I have the link handy actually, I'll make a command for it. But if you Google lists of ableist terms, then you'll be able to find, there's a really good list by Autistic Hoyer actually. I'm going to find the, yeah, because the reason this article is really good is that it doesn't just explain why the phrases are bad, it will also give you alternatives to use instead. So for example, I used to say, wow, that's crazy a lot, and I have replaced me saying things are crazy or insane or that sort of thing with wild. It's just as applicable, it still says the same thing, but it does it without using ableist language. So I put the link in chat. So I really recommend that people have a look at that. So in the case of dumb, which is prejudiced against deaf or hard of hearing people, people with speech-related disabilities, or linguistic or communication disorders or disabilities, you could consider saying dense, ignorant, lacks understanding. I think they probably fit in the context you were talking about. And it's a really good list because it gives you those alternatives. It doesn't just say, hey, stop doing this. It says, hey, stop doing this and here's how you can, which I think is really good. Especially with words that are so like ingrained in how we talk. I constantly find myself calling things stupid, especially. I'm trying really hard to stop doing that. But I'm not getting it right all the time. So I hope by like telling people about it more, that also helps make me more aware of it too. Yeah, so I'm just clicking around on things now. I'm trying to postpone having to think about what this is. Well, we know, to be fair, we know what that's going to involve. I just don't know how long it's going to take. And that's not now. We can worry about that then. So we've been live 50 minutes. Okay. In terms of what's going to happen next week, I do have to do artist books and zines. So what I will do is, because I'm going to stream Wednesday, Friday again. Wednesday, Friday? Yes, Wednesday, Friday. And I'm going to stick with doing those Wednesday and Friday at 1 PM every week. I might add another day in that at some point, but I can't do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I can't do every other Monday, so it's quite hard to add one in that's going to be like at the same time every week. But yeah, so next, let me put my calendar back to a week so I can then see what I'm doing. What I think I will do is I will do the finding sources and research, because I can't do those on stream. Because as I've discussed before, anything where I don't know what's going to appear in front of me, so any kind of search or anything like that, I'm not comfortable doing on stream because I don't know what I'm going to be displaying to you, which means I can't give you trigger warnings for things. I can't like really control what's going to show up. So all of that sort of stuff I'm always doing off stream, just because it's easier. So I will give myself those to do on Monday, Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we'll write it up. And then I think what we might do on Friday is thinking about the research questions, and going through that whole write-up, thinking about it in terms of those things, and then I can send it to my supervisor then, and then I can see her the following week. So I actually want to put that on the 15th of March, and I'll leave it as the 15th to the whatever, because we might end up changing it later anyway. Because then what I can do in that week, in the week before that, is I can... No, I think those words are bad, and I don't think they should be said. And I don't think it's okay to say that just because some people would laugh at that doesn't mean that other people can't be offended by them. I don't think that's okay. I don't think you can just say that and laugh at that, because there are words in that list that would really hurt me as a disabled person and would really hurt people that I care about, and just because that wouldn't happen to everyone doesn't mean that that word isn't bad, and doesn't mean that people shouldn't take it out of their language. And if that's something you believe, then I'd ask you to go, because we don't do that here. That's not okay. Yeah, that's not it's not a political thing. It's not a question of it's not how free speech works. You shouldn't hurt people with your speech. And not knowing is one thing. That's fine. If you don't know a word is bad, that's one thing. If someone tells you a word is bad and shows you why, and you still continue to use it, you are deliberately causing harm to people, and that's not okay. So, yeah, and then we'll have it done next week. And then the week after that I can use for meeting with my supervisor after that write-up, probably. I'm assuming she'll be able to see me the following week. Thinking about those questions, and anything else that we need to do. And potentially I can then take some of that week off and have a quieter week that week, which I think is probably a good idea. But yeah, so the other thing I needed to do, if I go over to here, because this is our notes, I'm going to take all the genre fiction stuff out. I'm probably still going to look at these two books. They're on my reading list. I'm going to look at them just because I think they'll be good contextually. But I'm going to get rid of all of those because I needed to limit myself somewhere. And that's going to be where. So yeah, it will be a case of going through like pushing, getting more video game suggestions, submissions from people, looking at those games I've got there, going into, so if we go to my reading list, I know we're jumping around a lot here, sorry, just partly to illustrate what's going to happen. I've got all of these articles on video games that I can go through and assess, work out. So there was a really good diagram in the reading techniques class that I took that showed thinking about a literature review in terms of a branching tree, and you want to identify, because like you read one thing and then that makes you split off and read 3 more things, which each make you split off and read a couple more things, and you get wider and wider from that starting point, right? And the idea is that you sort of skim all of those things to identify them, and then you work out what in that is core to your research and go deeply into those ones. Then what's a bit more peripheral and read those more loosely, or it might be like you read 1 or 2 chapters of a book rather than the whole thing, and then like as you go further away you work out either what you can drop off or what you just skim and keep in the background. And it's like the idea of things being your main secondary sources versus just stuff you've read contextually. So that's what we will be aiming to do with video games, and I think that's a good thing to start with, because that way also then identify the names of some more games. But potentially what we could do is we can start doing, let's say I'm doing, and this is just me spitballing now, let's say I'm doing 2 streams a week. One of them could be us playing games, because I have to play them to write about them. And then one could be doing that literature review, and that's potentially a nice way for me as well, because then it means I'm getting both done at the same time. I have some variety, because I think if I try and make myself just read, I realise I do a lot of reading. I like reading. I'm good at reading. Reading comes naturally to me. But reading is also one of the things that can be easily impeded if I have brain fog one day or things like that. And I think if I try and make myself do it solidly, it's probably not going to help. Not going to be great. So I'll definitely try and break things up a bit. And obviously we'll be pausing to write things up at points. We'll be thinking about what those answers to those questions are. I think I'm really tempted to like make a board with those questions on and put it up on my wall, so I've constantly got it there and I'm thinking about it. These are the things that we need to be looking for all the way through this literature review, whenever we're playing games, things like that, and really start to keep myself thinking about those questions and what my answers to them are. That's the whole idea of what I'm meant to be doing this year, and also for 3 years. So yeah, I think that's what the plan is. I really am not drunk enough today. I'm really doing badly at that right now. Right. Is there anything else we can usefully do today? Other than just try and remember to breathe. That's a very good thing. No, so I've got that. That's all done. I don't need to do anything about that. Obviously, I've got those supervisory write-ups to do, which I'll probably do either next week or the week after. And I'll do that off stream because I think there's sensitive information on the system I have to do it on, so I can't really show you that. But yeah, what we'll be doing the next time I see you, which will be Wednesday, which feels at this point like really far away, but isn't actually that far away, is we'll write up artist books, and then that write up, the core of it will be done, and we can edit it and decide if I want to add anything on the end about like those questions and like an overall overarching sort of tying it together of what I'm looking for. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there for today. Hang on, let me come back to here. Do I believe in psychic people? I think there's a lot in the world that we don't understand. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there and head off, because I'm still exhausted from yesterday, honestly. Thank you, Buttermode. I appreciate that, and thank you for being understanding. It's something that's very important to me, and to the sort of space I want to curate here. But it's not something everyone knows about. People might not have been called out on it before effectively, and I want to make sure that when it happens we do that in a way that educates people about what's happening. Thank you for following. Yeah, and because people don't know, and that's not their fault. We live in a very prejudiced world. We live in a very ableist society, and we've all got that internalized within us. I have as well. Like, disabled people aren't exempt from it. There are things that I do in my speech and my behavior and the way I think about myself that are made of that, and that's the only bad thing is like how you then respond to that when you become aware of it. It's not doing it in the first place is harmful, and you are responsible for it, but it's not your fault in the same way. It's complicated. But yeah, so I will leave it there, and I will go get some rest. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting. Thank you for coming along on this strange ride. We now know what we're doing until November, which feels really fucking weird. Yeah, no, I used a lot of them as well, and it's hard to get them out, but I really like that list for offering suggestions as well. I think I'm gonna make a command so we can call that link up, because I think it's fantastic, and it will be useful to have to be able to drop in for people. But yeah, so then we'll do some writing up on Wednesday about artist books, and I can tell you all more about what artist books are, because I know I've explained it before, but it's not something everyone knows a lot about. I'll see if I can show you some as well, because that would be fantastic. It's not the same as like handling them and looking through them, but you can at least see the sorts of things they can be. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely weekend. I will attempt to do so as well. And thank you all for coming, and I will see you all again soon. I'm sorry it's a bit shorter today, but that was really useful planning, and I'm very tired. So take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you soon. Bye.